Republican Senator Rand Paul. Senator, good afternoon to you. Let's start with Dr. Fauci. He says there's a very low chance of getting the coronavirus when you're fully vaccinated, yet the mask mandates were just lifted. Your take on all of this?
Well, this is Dr. Fauci finally being truthful and honest about the science. For months and months, he has known that once you're vaccinated, you're safe, that you're not spreading the disease and you don't need to wear a mask. He's known this for months. So you noticed when he finally changes his policy, he said, I did not want to be seen without a mask. So in other words, he's been participating in theater for the last several months at least. We know that the vaccine works. We've known the vaccine works for probably 6 months now. And so once people got vaccinated, we should have encouraged them to be without masks. But because of this mixed messaging, yes, you're going to find that in a country, when you treat Americans like lemmings, that unfortunately some people will choose to be lemmings. And so now you have, Lemmings International coming forward and saying, please make us still wear the mask for the rest of our life. So you're going to find this, but that's fine. If people want to wear a mask, by all means do. We're protected from halitosis and all kinds of other things if people keep wearing masks. But it has nothing to do with preventing disease prevention or disease transmissibility once you've been vaccinated or if you've gotten the disease naturally.
And Senator, as we are in a better place and we're moving forward, so many people are reflecting and they're looking back and they're looking at the CDC, they're looking at the White House, they're looking at Dr. Fauci and saying, if there are so many mixed messages, even now, what was going on all along during the pandemic? Were they giving us accurate information? Should we have confidence? And that's a big question.
From the very beginning, Dr. Fauci has shown himself to be someone that is sometimes honest about his lying. He says that he's lying to us because we're not smart enough to understand the truth. So in the initial stages, he said, masks don't work, don't buy them. But he was really telling you that because he didn't want you to buy the N95 masks, which they used in the hospital, and he was afraid there wouldn't be enough for doctors and nurses. But instead of being honest and saying, don't buy the N95 masks, or there's going to have to be a priority to selling them to hospitals and doctors, instead he said they don't work. When in reality, the truth is some masks work, the N95s work. But then he came out with another falsehood and he said all masks work, and that wasn't true either. Really, only the N95 masks have any chance of working. The rest of them are all theater. And then he continues and perpetuates this, but as a consequence, there's uncertainty, and now you have people petrified they're going to die, even though they've been vaccinated. It's completely irrational fear, but it's been promoted by Dr. Fauci and the government, and this has been a real disservice, and it's long past time that Dr. Fauci resign and find a place where he can do less damage to the American public.
Honest about his lying. I like that, and I'm going to have to use that in the future, I will say. But President Biden's giving mixed signals too, right? He's still wearing the mask outside sometimes, but he's saying if you're vaccinated, it's okay to take it off indoors. It's almost like they want to continue the political theater. They want to continue sending out this messaging of fear, Senator, because it justifies their spending.
And this is not without harm. They're still telling kids that are running in a track meet outside that haven't been vaccinated they have to wear a mask while running in a track meet. That is completely and entirely absurd. There is no science to back it, but Dr. Fauci is responsible for your kid wearing a mask in a track meet. So the CDC needs to be clear. Your kid's at camp, he doesn't need to wear a mask. Your kid's running in a track meet, your kid doesn't need to wear a mask. There is no scientific evidence to say that that's slowing down any kind of contagion. It doesn't work, hasn't worked, no laboratory testing, no experiments that show that it works. So it's way past time the CDC give some freedom to our children to let them get back to normal.
Before we switch gears, I just want to get your take on the nurses union, for example. They are saying that the CDC's messaging is wrong, that the way it impacts them, for example. I don't think that's what the CDC is saying. I think the CDC is saying as we resume our daily activities, we civilians on the street can remove our masks outdoors and indoors if we're vaccinated. But I don't think the CDC is saying that the protocol should be changed in hospitals, for example. I almost think they're taking this one step too far.
Well, the CDC really has not very good advice on a lot of this. Most hospitals can make their own decisions. Surgeons wear masks during surgery. In COVID patients' rooms, they wear masks. But guess what? They don't wear cloth masks. Every hospital didn't take the CDC to tell them. In fact, the CDC probably hasn't even issued a guidance on this. But at every hospital in America, when you go in to treat a COVID patient, you're given an N95 mask. You don't take a cut-up piece of your undershirt and put it on your face and call it a mask. They don't use those in the hospital because they frankly frankly don't work. And there's no science to say that they actually protect the doctors or nurses. So they all wear an N95 masks. But I think the hospitals, communities, states are able to do this. The CDC is such a mess. They need to get out of the advice business and out of the mandate business. Look, we've got them telling you whether you can have a contract with your renter, whether our apartment landlord can have a contract. CDC never had any business in that. It has way overstepped their bounds. We have legislation to get them out of the apartment business. And so really we need to get the CDC back to normality where they aren't as involved in every one of our economic decisions.
Yeah, it sounds like what you're saying is this is all about common sense as we move on, and Americans should use their judgment and live their lives, wear the mask if you want to, and if you're in a situation you think you need it, and otherwise if you're fully vaccinated, let's go, let's move on with things. I do, while I have you, want to switch gears for a moment and look at what's happening with the markets today. Now, we've got a little bit of a sell-off underway here, and in part it's due to worries about inflation. Now, Senator, you've been warning about the president's $1 trillion spending and proposed tax hikes. And this is what I worry about, because the infrastructure bill hasn't even been passed. The tax hikes haven't even happened. And the market is really starting to get spooked.
I think when the Fed says this is transitory, and mostly supporters of the Fed back the Fed up and say it's transitory, I think that's an excuse for government spending and borrowing. It's sort of from the same kind of lexicon of deficits don't matter. So we added $4 or $5 trillion worth of debt last year. We're going to do probably the same again this year. There are those of us who believe there are repercussions, that this isn't a transitory blip, that what you've causes a massive misallocation of resources, a massive infusion of cash into the stock market, and that there is a time in which people wake up and say, the emperor has no clothes. And at that moment in time, you will discover that there's a lot of capital that's gone in the wrong direction, that demand is exceeding supply, and all these supply chain things. It's because we've disrupted the normal marketplace, but I don't think it's as benign as people say it's going to be. I think it's going to have profound repercussions, and that we're just getting started. Yeah, it was an excessive amount of spending. Even the last package signed in March, when we knew we were turning a corner in this country with vaccinations, Senator, yet, it almost seems like there is a blank check on the desk of this president. You combine the spending and the debt, which is historic, it's never ever happened to this degree, greater than World War II accumulation of debt. You combine that with now the threat of punitive taxes. In some ways, the marketplace, I think, accepts debt more than they accept debt plus punitive taxes. So we're going to have massive debt added. We're already doing it, but now we're talking about punitive corporate taxes. And even worse than punitive corporate taxes is punitive capital gains taxes, which I think is probably more than anything got the market skittish.
Senator Rand Paul, thank you so much for your time today. Good to see you, sir.
Thank you.